Outstanding November 5th, 2024. Happy election day. Going to talk really quick about the market, some names I'm looking at, and go from there. But take a look at futures, kind of flat, slightly in the green, coming off of yesterday's red session. Asia markets overnight rallied, and yeah, it should be interesting today. We'll have to see. Yesterday wasn't surprised, so we rallied to, well, I wouldn't say high, 572.50 on the SPY in the green early in the morning, and then just gave that back all the way down to 568. Broke under 568 for a second at the noon hour, bounced, and then just chopped around for the rest of the session, closing in red. But there were some positive signs, right? The 10-year yield finally went down, right? The VIX was flat, and small caps rallied. So I think if you take those three ingredients and repeat those today, tomorrow, I think that'll bode well for the overall market. Uh, as for the election today, and I mentioned it, and it is kind of like, I wouldn't say it's you would think, right? You would think that depending, I don't, not to get in the political side of things, but markets typically, first they want certainty. So just getting the election out of the way kind of gives some certainty to what the future brings. That's number one. And number two, typically you don't want to see a sweep on either side, either party controlling the Senate, the House, and the presidency, because that would pretty much imply an ease of passage of their agenda, right? So typically that's not bullish, right? You kind of want to see a little bit a mix so that there's more discussion, things take time to get through and things like that. But then you go to historical, and I think I posted a chart. I'll post it in the chat room again, but it shows that it's actually uh, the market performs better when you have unified the Senate, the House, and the presidency. So pretty interesting stat, but we'll have to see how this all plays out. I mean, people say it's up in the air. It's always, you have all these polls. It almost gives folks, the media and all these outlets and pundits just things to talk about, right? So I can't wait for this to be over. I don't want to hear that stuff. We can move on. But will be an interesting day today. Also, I posted this in the chat room yesterday as well. It was a stat I was looking back in September and August, the market breadth, right? So, or at least the strength. When you have the market and stocks over there, when the stock is over there, its 50-day moving average, that means it's trending upward, right? That's a bullish signal. You trying to buy a dip, you want to wait for some support. So typically I look at the 50-day moving average. You see them on my charts when I do annotations, because the chart's like the history lesson, right? That's where the buyers found, thought it was cheap when the sellers thought it was expensive, right? So those are the dynamic there. So you have the 50-day moving average. 50% of the stocks on the S&P are above their 50-day moving average, which is at the lowest level since the start of August. So yeah, you take it a glass half full, glass half empty kind of situation here, where if you're bullish, you could say, wow, there's an opportunity for the market to start to outperform again because there's been like a reset. And then you could take it as a bear. You could say, wow, the market breadth is weak. Stocks are under their moving average. That means sellers are in control. Me, I take it as a glass half. I take it a bullish bias, right? Through my bull. Right now, I'm cautiously optimistic. So that could be a setup for more rally into the end of the year, especially if the three ingredients: yields come down, the VIX goes down, and small caps rally. So that's that. Talk about some individual names here, and first I'll talk about DELL. Crazy gapped. The news came out, reports that NVIDIA might be moving to different suppliers. I mean, DELL's already big customer already. So you start looking at, was gapping up on the news, ran up to 135 in the pre-market, then down to 132. And then when it opened, DELL was trading 132, 133. So I locked some of my strikes in for over 100%. Held a couple more, went all the way up to 135, and then just gave back those gains and actually closed in the red. So pretty surprising. It's up here in the pre-market over 130. It was actually higher earlier at 132. I think it's setting up for a move to 145. So I don't know why I don't have my annotated chart here, but uh, needs to find some footing here today. And if it can hold its gains, maybe I'll look for some strikes. My calls don't expire till next week, so I'll continue to remain patient. But a nice trader on DELL the last couple sessions. Wynn reported earnings after the close yesterday. So similar to Las Vegas Sands, when they reported last week, it was like a mixed bag. So they missed on revenue and EPS, but they did authorize 750 million more dollars for their share buyback program, where I think Las Vegas Sands was 2 billion. They also, if you take a look at the year over year, their EPS has improved. Their Macau revenue has increased on a year over year basis. So I'm not saying, and stock's up from $70 back in September. I'm not saying it's going to go in and get calls at the open. I still have some strikes in the next week, but it could be a move where it might go red to green at the open, and it could be some spec plays to the upside. So don't be surprised if I add some strikes. Also, this morning you have some of these analysts like Deutsche Bank came out this morning and they cut their price target, but it's still at one. I think it's 117, but they dropped it from 130. So it's kind of like they're playing catch up because they've had high price target. They used to be well in the 200s. And I just think there might be an opportunity. So disappointing. I would love to see a huge gap today and run, but it might be a nice red to green play. So I'll be watching that. Not much to add here on Travelzoo. I mean, considering where it's gone over the last 2 weeks since its earnings, it was at $13. To see it pretty much flat yesterday on a day that the market kind of a little mixed bag. I think that bodes well. Still looking for the December and March strikes, and then at some point I'll have to lock the rest of my November 1750s and November. Well, hopefully the November 20s will be in the money before I close them. But still looking for those, and it's still bullish to name. And there's the more the time goes by, the closer it gets to 2025, and that's the big catalyst in my opinion, or the unforeseen catalyst. Right? I don't think people look at this name. So, you know, more people start to look and say, hey, there's an opportunity for them to drive growth finally for the first time in many years and huge margin growth. So that's Travelzoo VKTX. It's so disappointing. It's sitting here pretty much flat here in the pre-market. I mean, what else can you say? And I have the wrong chart up here, but it was up 20% in the pre-market, and then reversed those gains. Then was trading, was still solidly green at the open, and then it just gave a back close down 13%. No news, no catalyst really I can think of. And AstraZeneca, AZN also had a poster at Obesity Week in regards to their oral GLP-1 drug. They acquired some company in China. And that data was weaker than the VKTX's, and it's not in as much detail. But I think it was a 5.8% weight loss where VKTX is at the high dosage with 8.2%. So they don't even have placebo in there. So I mean, it's a substantial difference. I don't know if it's that. Is it the fact that there's more possible entrants in the market? I have no idea. What I do know, or at least what it looks like, is that the short-term control, pending M&A and stuff, it seems like they know that they can take advantage of these pops and make money. So if it gets back over 65, maybe I'll look for an opportunity to try some calls here. But it's so frustrating to watch and trade that it's almost, it takes too much time and energy at some point. But the thing is, the time I take my eyes off it will be the time there'll be some kind of buyout news. So not going to pass up on that. So I'll continue to look for opportunities. And back in the summer and then early fall, I was looking for monthly strikes. So actually, no, back in the spring and summer. So that might be another strategy I'll look to do. Just some inexpensive calls for monthly expirations for a possible M&A, which is going to happen at some point. You got to think it's got to happen. So that's that. Corbis. So finally back in Corbis calls. I had the October strikes after its sell-off. They had a poster as well for Obesity Week, and it's more that they're still clinical for their CB1 weight loss drug. So it's still early stage, but this, I've said this many times, to see it down here just based on the failure of another company, and they also have a different pipeline. So I think there's an opportunity. I was watching the stock bounce yesterday, was rallying, and then you see huge call interest come in. So I went and got those calls, and I might look to get some December strikes if it holds the gains and starts to rally again today. Big spot is well, obviously 20, but then 23 was the spot back in end September. So if you get over 23, then I think it's off to races. Huge short interest. Another name I think is misunderstood, and I think that's why when you see some of these names that are shorted, some are rightfully so, and then some people take advantage of it. And there's others that I think are just misunderstood. You look at Corbis, it's like people haven't even looked at it. They just think it's a failed CB1 drug, right? Where meanwhile, they're not even in a phase 1 study. So rants for other days on that one. GPCR also released their posters after the close yesterday. I don't think there was anything earth shattering, so I don't know what it's going to do here today. It looks like the ask is down here at 40. I mean, it looks like it's tight range. Hopefully that starts to get going. But the chart, you look at the chart, looks like it's ready to break. The 50-day moving average is at 41.72. So if we can get over that, I think that's a good sign. And then last but not least here is WW. They report earnings tomorrow, and it's a name I'm not really going to talk too much about. It's one of those, I call them the hero zero play. So it's either going to rally to $10 in 2025 and higher, or 2020 into 2026, or even in the next couple weeks and months, or eventually it's just going to be a company that goes the way of the dinosaur, right? It's going to go to zero, or what have you. So the earnings tomorrow, they announced that news that they're going to be offering compounded GLP-1 drugs, which the stock soared almost up to $2. I think it was over $2 for a little bit. Gave most of it back. Now it's trading here 122. If they give it any color on how the program's going, and if they're able to give it at least some kind of guidance, I mean, it could be a huge rally. And I was doing the numbers over the weekend on the implied move, and it was like WW had 130% implied move. So I not really going to talk too much about it. Hims and Hers reported after earnings after the close yesterday, and that kind of can give a little color, a little picture into what's going on with the compounded GLP-1 situation. They talked about there's still a shortage, and they think it's a landscape where they have to worry about the regulatory concerns that the FDA might remove the possibility for companies to offer a compounded solution. They don't think that's going to happen. Despite that, Hims still had a 40% revenue growth. So I think if you take a read through on that, I think it bodes well for WW. They have a bigger reach. So we'll have to see how that plays out, but certainly will be interesting tomorrow. Also on Thursday morning, Clear Secure reports earnings. It was holding up. The stock's been holding up pretty well. Then all of a sudden yesterday afternoon, it was trading lower and then just fell into the closing down 5%, one of its biggest declines in a couple weeks. I still have the January strikes. I'm probably not going to try. It doesn't make sense to try and get more calls into the binary event Thursday morning. Clear Secure has always posted beats and raises. So I don't think that's like a foregone conclusion. It's just a matter of how the market reacts. And considering what it did last quarter, I could trade up into the mid 40s, if not higher. So that's my thoughts there. I'm just going to hold what I have. And I think that's it, folks. So Fed meeting Thursday. I corrected myself. I kept thinking it was Wednesday. Typically, it's Wednesday at 2 o'clock, a statement with 2:30 press conference, but not this time. Let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.